What if your life as a therapist didn't require escaping? What if your work as a therapist actually supported your dream to live and travel abroad without having to limit yourself to 2-week vacations? Hi, I'm Dr. Annie, and I am a licensed psychologist and a digital nomad therapist. For the last 2.5 years, I've successfully run my private practice while living and traveling abroad. For years, I told myself this type of freedom as a therapist was irresponsible, unrealistic, and just not possible as a therapist. But I was wrong. And today, I want to help you start to imagine what your version of life as a digital nomad therapist could look like. This isn't a productivity video. This is for therapists who feel stuck in survival mode, but keep dreaming about wanting to live abroad and don't know if they're allowed to want that. This is all about permission before logistics. So let's dive in. When it comes to feeling safe and free enough to build a private practice that allows you to travel abroad while running your US-based private practice, I feel like one of the most important first steps that you need to take is deconstructing from how hustle and capitalistic culture is intertwined into our US therapist culture. Our education and our licensing process really instills in us this feeling that we have to work really hard, we have to sacrifice our time, we have to work for little to no pay, and that our work as a therapist is so meaningful that the well-being of the system we're working in or the clients we're serving is more important than our well-being. I know that if you're a therapist and you're watching this video, you have had to juggle so much between classes, internship, papers, comps, and maybe even trying to work at the same time to support yourself while you're getting into massive amounts of student loan debt, all to then graduate and have to spend a couple of years accumulating hours for licensure, probably working for very little pay, just to then get licensed and maybe start your own private practice or continue work for an agency that doesn't really allow you to build a life to get out of that burnt out state you got into just to get this license. So I feel like as a therapist, when you think about going abroad, I feel like there's so much that's working against you that you need to deconstruct to probably feel safe enough to even dream about going abroad. The idea of traveling, sitting on white sand, crystal clear blue water beaches while your clients are in the United States struggling and suffering goes against this kind of culture of martyrdom that is very much alive in therapist culture. So if the idea of becoming a digital nomad therapist lights you up and gives you so much excitement, but you can't get past the guilt and fear of doing something so radically different from what our field tells us we are allowed to do, you have to begin to question these messages that tell you that a life of traveling or feeling like your life is a vacation is somehow wrong. You need to do some soul searching and really determine if these are the values you really want to base your life off of, or are you just following these values because you're afraid of being called selfish or being shamed by your colleagues, your clients, or maybe even your family. And I know from firsthand experience for myself, but also from talking to so many other therapists with the same dream, needing to give your whole life over to work and your clients needs to be deconstructed. Otherwise, it's going to make it very, very hard to probably do anything that moves you in that direction. The first time I left the country was when I was in my master's program for clinical psychology. I quickly became obsessed with traveling and honestly would constantly obsess over my next trip, researching all the things I would want to do, stalking Google flights to watch for cheap flights. And so when I was watching a YouTube video that introduced this idea of being a digital nomad, I lit up and was like, oh my God, this is real? People do this? But at the time, I was finishing up my doctorate program and was on my internship, and I was so passionate about opening up a private practice, and that is what I wanted to do with my career. And I instantly felt like there was no way that I was going to be able to be a good therapist, have a successful private practice, while living in Mexico City or traveling in Thailand. I felt like if I wanted to be a good therapist that really helped my clients, I would need an in-person practice where I went to every week to sit with these clients year in and year out, prioritizing the healing of my clients while leaving my digital nomad dreams in the rearview mirror. But then, literally the month that I opened my in-person private practice in Arlington, Virginia, my boyfriend of 5 years broke up with me out of nowhere. And I think that radically changed something inside of me where I realized that I was living my life for other people, really prioritizing their well-being or what they wanted from me over what I was wanting and the type of life that I needed to feel whole and feel fulfilled. So while I was in the thick of grief and deeply sad from this relationship ending, I knew it was time to revisit this idea of becoming a digital nomad therapist. It wasn't easy. It required me to shut down my successful private practice in Arlington, Virginia, something that I worked really hard for. I had to say goodbye to all my friends, a place that I had lived for 10 years. And I transitioned to fully virtual practice and moved my entire life from Virginia all the way to Washington State, where I could move in with my parents and hopefully in the near future travel abroad while running my private practice. It wasn't easy, and it did require me to really deconstruct these ideas I had for myself or what I thought my future was going to be. And it really required me to take a risk on myself and take a risk to pursue my dreams. But now, 2.5 years later, I've lived in Morocco, Thailand, and Bali. I met my husband in Morocco and most recently gave birth to our daughter in Thailand. A year into my digital nomad life, I took my first vacation. We were on the gorgeous Indonesian island Gili Air. I highly recommend you go because it's literally the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. And all I could think about was that this vacation was so different to my previous vacations that I had went on when I was traveling from the United States. To me, after living on the coast of Morocco and living in islands in Thailand and then Bali, it felt like that vacation was just my normal day-to-day life. Yes, I was in a brand new location that was stunning and beautiful, but it ultimately didn't feel any different. It didn't really feel like I was taking a vacation. It just felt like my day-to-day life minus the sessions with my clients. And that's when I realized that the life that I had built literally was a vacation with some work on the side. And since then, I've really tried to think about what are the reasons that living abroad while working feel like you are on vacation compared to maybe when you're in the United States working. And some of the things that I came up with is that you can prioritize adventure and travel so much more easily than when you're in the United States. It's so much cheaper to hop on a flight when you're in Europe to travel to a neighboring country. And I think when you think about vacations, what are you doing? You're spending time outside, you're going on adventures, you're exploring new things, you're maybe prioritizing self-care, getting massages, or relaxing by the beach. You're maybe in countries that have more of a sense of community where you're seeing people, you're not just trapped in a car, deadlocked in traffic. You're maybe traveling to a place that has a drastically lower cost of living, so you're able to enjoy the nicer things. And when you become a digital nomad therapist, I honestly think that it is so much easier to live out those types of things in your day-to-day life than it is here in the United States. We spend so much time traveling, we honestly have to work so much more just to afford the cost of living. And if you have an in-person practice, you're not only having to pay for your personal life, but you're also having to pay for an office and all of the other overhead costs that come along with having an in-person practice. I know when I was living in the DC area, I had to pay $900 just for 3 days in an office. And then I had to pay for parking because there was no free parking around my office building. Those things just add up so much more. And so when you become a digital nomad therapist, you don't have to work as much. And so then you can spend more of your time relaxing, enjoying, doing things that make you feel alive compared to really having to hustle to make ends meet. I think also other cultures are not as into work and workaholism like here in the United States. And so you're naturally around a culture and other people who aren't doing the same thing. And so then kind of reinforcing that in you. They're reinforcing enjoying life, prioritizing pleasure, prioritizing other people. And so I think that it just makes it so much easier to live the type of lifestyle that feels enjoyable and ultimately feels like a vacation. If this conversation stirred something up inside of you and you're ready to move from dreaming to doing, I want to invite you into my group coaching program. The Nomad Practice Accelerator is an 8-week program for therapists who want to build or adapt their current private practice to allow them to live and work abroad while successfully running their private practice without getting into legal trouble, jeopardizing their ability to get clients, and have a clear step-by-step framework to get there. Inside, I'll teach you how to navigate the legal and ethical questions that come along with living abroad as a therapist and the things you need to do to make sure that you don't jeopardize your license or potentially get into any legal trouble. I'll also talk through how you can build an online marketing system that allows you to get new clients while you're anywhere in the world and doesn't require you to be stuck in the United States within a specific community, and create system and workflows that actually work for you anywhere in the world. This isn't about escaping your life or throwing everything away. It's about building a practice that's portable, sustainable, and aligned with the way that you want to live. If you're craving more flexibility and freedom in a private practice that supports your life instead of limiting it, then this group is for you. All the details are linked in the description below. That's all for you today. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe for future content all about building a flexible practice, working online as a therapist, and creating a life that actually feels good. Leave a comment below letting me know what is the first country you would want to digital nomad in. If you like this video, I highly recommend you watch this next one.